Those things we would advise you of. But all the communications that happen between India and the holder after that refusal, we won't have a record of. We will only get the final result. So it doesn't access all the Indian. You would have to get that from the Indian database, if I understood your question. Okay. The portfolio manager is a much more sophisticated tool. Some people shy away from it, but I think practitioners who do a lot of work tend to like it. Basically, it allows you to organize, put all of your international applications in one place. You can upload amendments to them, find the status. It has access to these other tools that I'm talking about, the first two, which are standalone. It takes a little more time to figure out how to use it. But in that regard, on our website, where you find these, there are video tutorials that tell you how to use them. So you can just go on the site, look at the tutorial, and for the most part, get the basic concepts. And then if you contact us if you have any questions. But the tutorials, I think, are very good. I'm pleased with them. The last thing, every quarter, we issue something called Madrid Highlights. You can sign up for it. The concept of this document is that it tells you everything that happened in the Madrid system during that past quarter, of which we would be aware. I mean, if a country changes its national law, we don't know about it necessarily, but certainly changes in individual fees, new accessions, tips on certain problems that are commonly occurring. Every quarter, we get sent out, as you can see, contracting parties, what the Madrid Union is doing. Are there any changes contemplated in common regulations? New online services, outreach programs, seminars that we run, some tips, other useful information, and always how to contact us. And the contact us list gives you, there are 3 teams in our examining office. And each team, a country is assigned to a team. So you can find out which team India is assigned to, and you can find out the email address and phone number that you can use if you want to contact somebody about an application that you have that's pending. With the email, obviously that works better given the time zone difference. They try to respond to those within 2 days. That's the goal. And luckily, I think they've been able to do it so far, but given the volume that's coming, it may take a little longer. But nonetheless, people have been generally pleased with that. I recommend that you go there and check out that Contact Us, if nothing else. Okay, that's the basic overview, and this is something that I always explain to people. I call it putting it in perspective. The system itself, conceptually, as I described it to you, is very simple. It accommodates a business model as it says, that need to reduce costs, not only in the initial filing, but also in the maintenance and management of the right. Like I told you about renewals, changing names of addresses and things like that. But it can be complex in its implementation. And it shouldn't be surprising in what it is attempting to accomplish. You have a single international registration that has legal effect across different national platforms. And it's not a simple thing to do, but it's worth trying because of the cost savings that you can and realize. And consequently, the last point, in real estate, they say it's location, location, location. The Madrid system, it's practitioners. The system is designed for the interests of the holder, but it does not work unless knowledgeable practitioners use it. So it's like taking a big ocean liner into port. You need a pilot. You're not just going to pick it up one weekend and do it. So really, again, although the system has other people's interests in mind, it depends on you to make it work. So I think that's a point.
How many applications are there from India?
That's not how many we received, but anyway, we'll get there.
60.
I can tell you what.
How many have you
actually received?
No, it's a good number. In the last 3 months, it is 60 is a good number.
This is my last slide on the overview. If you don't believe what I told you, we've taken it, we've interviewed various users and posted their interviews on the website. Look at some of those companies and see what they have to say about why they use the system, what they're afraid or not afraid of. So again, you can find these on our website. We try, it's a very expensive thing to do. We fly out there and interview these people. But our idea is to keep adding it so that it generates more trust and
Why
understanding.
specifically you put as a Swiss francs as a fee payment?
Because we're in Switzerland, we don't like to do currency changes.
No, I do agree with you, but when you're dealing with internationally, I think you should also consider the other things.
Well, I think it becomes less relevant as you, dealing with currency changes is really complicated if you're doing it as a central exchange, and if you basically have to become a bank.
The laws will not permit you.
I agree.
The laws in Switzerland will not permit you, just as the laws will not permit you to receive money. So they are essentially, they will permit you to receive dollars.
The PCT system
Yes.
deals in multiple currencies. The Madrid system does not. As far as
Is it better
we,
management and more efficient?
I think it's more efficient and
Administrative.
as electronic filing takes place, and the way we handle, like we issue an irregularity letter, okay? And we tell you you haven't given us enough fees. You can pay by credit card. And the currency change, the currency transaction is handled there. And we, the International Bureau, eat the fee. The percentage that the credit card companies.
Mr. Allen, my question to you, is it not the process being delayed because instead of filing an application directly from the particular country, now although I am sending the application through WIPO, precisely what is the matter?
Well, again, the way the system was set up conceptually, it was an extension of a pre-existing right. So there has to be that certification process that can only take place at the Office of Origin. There is some talk within the system of abolishing this requirement of a basic mark, or at least freezing dependency. So once it's filed, it's no longer dependent. You would still have to file through the Office of Origin. We're also exploring something, a way to get around it. Basically, it's a little sophisticated, and I think it's quite a ways off, but we're thinking of offering electronic filing outsourcing services for our office.
It's outsourced.
So we will set up a file server.
How effective is the
It
WIPO?
can have the Indian logos on it, but you would be filing with us. They would access it, certify it, and then we would receive it. So we are thinking of trying something like that to get around it.
Precisely, suppose that any query comes from particular country to the WIPO, and the application filed by the applicant from different country. How many days we keep that application and send back to the first original applicant? So my question is very simple. How effectively the WIPO keep transparency of the file, moving the applications, not keeping it with them?
If I understand your question correctly, it takes about a month, between a month and a little over a month to examine an international application and generate an international registration. And then it's forwarded on to a designated contracting party.
Now my question.
With electronic communications, like for the USPTO, I'll give you for an example. If you file an international application with the USPTO and you enter the serial number of a basic mark and you change nothing, we get the international application in about 10 minutes.
That is one issue. Second issue, suppose any queries comes up from the USPTO, whatever the application filed by me through WIPO. Suppose any query from the WIPO, that query comes to you, WIPO, then
If there will be no queries from, well, once the international application is filed, WIPO will examine the formalities, and if there's an irregularity, we'll issue an irregularity letter. It generally goes to the office, because a lot of the things that have to be fixed, the office has to fix. And the office will be in communication with you about it. There are any number of ways to do it. All different offices do it differently. But basically, we send the irregularity back to the Office of Origin. If they need to communicate with the applicant, they do, and they respond and send it back to us. That's generally how that works. Usually we give, I think it's 3 months for someone to respond to the irregularity letter.
You also send the copy directly to the owner? Because one of our clients received it directly and the office was not aware, or the receiving office. So then he came back to us and then we had to.
It would be
We received a copy electronically.
typically it should go to the Office of Origin, There are some irregularities that can be resolved by the holder, by the applicant themselves. The most obvious one is just payment. If all that's missing is a fee, then that can be done by the owner without the involvement of the office. I'd have to see this particular.
No, there was, yeah, you're rightly, but there was an issue of the payment which you've already done, but and we had a discussion with the examiner and it sorted out. And the second issue was also to truncate some terms, which was also done. But in this case, the the attorney who was assisting our client was having no knowledge about that, and the client, in fact, the owner actually wrote to us saying that we have received such document, and then that's how we sorted out. And now we have in fact replied to the receiving office, and then things have sorted out. One issue was on the payment, so that could be a reason that the mail had directly electronically come to the owner.
Well, if it had other issues in it, it should have gone to the office. If it just had the, and I'd have to look into that, but if it just had a payment issue, that can be resolved by basically anybody. Anybody could just go to our e-payment page and use a credit card to pay whatever fee was due. It doesn't have to be the holder, it could be anybody. Your cousin could do it, anybody. It really doesn't matter, as long as the check doesn't bounce with a 7. That's pretty much a renewal. And renewals usually consist just of a payment. But there are mistakes, and if you have examples, if you've already sorted it out, then the International Bureau knows it. But if you have examples that haven't been sorted out, then give them to me after this session. I'll see what I can do. I don't want to take up the whole time here, so let me move on. Update. This is the statistical part. This is a time series from '96 to 2011. I didn't update this one, I'm sorry. But basically, these are the number of international registrations enforced at the end of each year. Not the number of international registrations that were registered, the number that were enforced at the end of each year. And the only point of this chart is to show you that basically the system has been on a steady and gentle increase ever since the protocol entered into force. As the bottom says, the average annual % rate of change is about 3.4% steadily, regardless of recessions. That's registrations in force. And something I mentioned, or I was going to mention, but I didn't, because I cut my presentation short this morning. Holders of international registrations. This is a table showing portfolios. In other words, portfolio, let's say, portfolios that consist of 1 to 2 international registrations, 3 to 10. You can see this, that approximately 80%, or 141,871 holders, have international registrations, or holders of international registrations have portfolios consisting of 1 or 2 international registrations, which suggests strongly, and in ad hoc investigations have confirmed, that this is our biggest user group of small businesses. We have firms that have more than 500. We have some of the biggest firms in the world using it. Apple, I guess, which is still the largest firm by market capitalization, uses it. All its icons are protected with the Madrid system. But in fact, the largest user group are little companies, probably the biggest revenue base as well. And lately, we've been trying to figure out how to outreach to small companies to advise them of its existence. It's very expensive and difficult to do from Geneva, but basically it involves going to every little chamber of commerce in every little town, every little state in our country. But that's the kind of thing we're trying to do through the use of consultants in various countries. But that's an interesting fact. Now, international applications, again, from 2004 to 2013. This is the number of applications that were filed in 2013. It's a record. And again, we're seeing a relatively straightforward progression with a dip for major recessions. Obviously, 2008, everything took a nosedive. But by 2011, we were back to up to 2008 levels, and we've continued to climb since. I think this is fairly typical of most trademark offices. Trademarks are the most popular form of intellectual property, and applications seem to be increasing around the world generally. International applications, these are the top filers, top 10. European Union, the United States, Germany, France, Switzerland, China, Italy, Benelux, Japan, and the UK. You're looking at the number of applications filed in 2012 versus the number filed in 2013. These are arranged in order of 2013 descending order. This is the total share. The European Union was 15.9%, the growth of the previous year. A few little changes here. China and Italy changed position. Benelux, Japan switched. UK came up, but these are relatively small numbers, so it's not terribly significant. Overall, we're seeing growth, a few decreases here and there. It's probably due to some local condition that's unique to that country. International applications by region. This is a more interesting statistic. I'm comparing 66 to 2013. These are the number of international applications filed in these regions. And this is the share. So for example, Western Europe, the Central and Baltic countries in 96 accounted for 98.7%, 100% of the international applications filed in 96 when the protocol first
Where
introduced.
do we fall with South Asia?
Sorry?
South Asia, where do we fall? We'll fall to.
East Asia, I would assume. I can check that because these categories are very political. They change all the time. It's a never-ending negotiation. But the point here is, in 2013, although the number of applications has greatly increased in this region, it's only 64% now. The system, I guess, is becoming less Eurocentric as more countries join. It's a good thing. And hopefully, this move away from basically a system that was created during the imperialist phase of European colonialism is becoming a more global system and will continue to adjust. So that's a welcome trend. And again, this is 2013, so you've had almost no impact on these numbers yet. But once Indian numbers pick up, this thing will continue to move that way. And certainly when some country like South Africa joins, that will cause some information down there, and also other South American countries. So we're seeing a flattening of that, which we think is a very good thing. Now, this is a complicated chart. I took the countries roughly in this region that are party to the protocol: Australia, China, India, Japan, North Korea, South Korea, Philippines, Singapore, and Vietnam. This is the office of origin. That means international applications were filed in these countries, and they designated these countries. So obviously, Australia doesn't designate itself, China doesn't designate itself, hence this non-applicable line. But you can see, for example, in 2013, international applications filed in China. These are the countries in the region that they were most interested in.
So only 4 applications from Battery Protocol in India.
International applications, yes.
Where are you? India,
It does not mean, we have filed 6, but for some reason it's not gone up to, 2 have gone up. So, I mean, if all 2 are there, then I'm pretty.
But anyway, so you could get a sense, and this is also an interesting thing about the Madrid system. It's a global system, but it can be used as a regional subsystem as well. Just if you only have 3 or 4 countries in your own region, then you can use the Madrid system to obtain rights that way as well. But you can get an idea from this chart. If you're interested, and I email it to you, you can see who's designating whom. You can also look at it the other way. In other words, Vietnam, who's designating Vietnam? This is what Australia's doing, this is what China's doing, this is what Japan, Korea, South Korea, Philippines, Singapore, of course, Vietnam's not applicable to itself. So it's sort of an interesting chart to see what's happening in the region, who's making the most use of it. I'm counting on India to come up. I mean, you're down there with North Korea now. You've got to see something. They have a reason for not using it, you don't. India, only a couple of slides. I took this out of one of our publications that does country profiles. In other words, WIPO collects data not only from India, but other countries that report about where Indians have filed. So 2011 is the most recent year. And we're dealing with resident applications, and applications and registrations. Those that are resident to India, those that are non-resident to India, and those Indians that go abroad. And you can see from the numbers and the rankings, compared to all other countries, that India, number 3 in resident, you have a lot of domestic applications. Number 9 and 6 in non-resident is still pretty high, but going abroad, you're still down at the 35th level. There are other countries that export more, which is surprising to me. But this is back in 2011. This is the most recent data that we can get. But it just gives you a context. These are the ones, international applications received a better indication in the last 6 months. 1 in July, 2 in September, 9 in October, 18 in November, 4 in December. The countries that you have designated, if I have this information here, 2 to the United States, 2 to the United Kingdom, 2 to New Zealand, 2 to Australia, 1 to Japan, 1 to Mexico, 1 to Ireland, 1 to the EU, 1 to Bulgaria. Those so far has been the activity. By way of contrast, designation of India in international registrations has been a total of 1,916. And you can see the numbers through the month. Top 15 countries that are designating India are the US with 589, the European Union with 312 designations, Germany with 142, Switzerland with 133, France with 106, Italy, Benelux, Japan around 100, UK 61, Australia 53, China 39, Republic of Korea 34, Denmark 27, the Russian Federation 18, and Spain 18. Those are the countries that have been using the system to designate India. And that's the overview and the statistics that I have with regard to what's happening in the system. Now,